From gun reform to metal detectors to potentially arming teachers with guns in South Carolina schools, I sit down one-on-one with State Representatives Wendell Gilliard and Marvin Pendarvis for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, gentlemen, it's so good to see you again.
Good morning.
It's good to be here.
I appreciate this.
It's always a pleasure, my friend.
You're welcome.
And you got me sitting by a young champion. I'm proud to be here.
Well, you all are prominent leaders in this community, so we thank you for your service. And I know you were just talking to me just about off camera, that is. And there's so much issues going on right now in the South Carolina State House.
Never seen it this busy. Never.
What is it like to be you?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I do realize this, and my colleague would agree that it's going to take both parties working from a bipartisanship position to get things done, okay? And like I told my colleague here, and he heard me mention many times on the floor that sometimes you have to push the party label aside. You have to listen to we, the people, okay? And the voices of the people are out there. And both of us are here today to tell you that we hear the voices.
Marvin, what is it like to be you? You're just new, fresh.
I'm 7 weeks in, and I tell you, I'd have to echo Representative Gilliard's sentiments. There's so many issues that we're facing in the General Assembly this year. And one of the things that I've learned quickly is that building a coalition, building relationships is so important to really effectuate change. Because the reality is we are in the minority party.
Sure.
But I certainly believe our voices are heard, and the issues that we care about and find important are ones that we believe transcends political affiliations. And so it's about just trying to build relationships. I've found leaning on those who have been there and have been doing it for some time, seeking guidance and advice from them. And also just reading up on the issues, studying things, making sure that I'm fully aware of what I'm voting on, because the people sent me up there to do a job and to do a competent job. And so I owe it to them to make sure I'm fully aware of all the issues. I've fully vetted them, I've fully analyzed them, I've discussed them with colleagues, and I've developed the necessary relationships in order to get something done on that. So it's a good time to be me, I'll say that. I certainly am, I feel good about the position I'm in, and I'm eager and excited and optimistic about the things we'll be able to get done, not only to close out this session, but in sessions to come.
Let's go to the top story. And you hear that on television, you read it in the newspaper, you hear it on the radio. Gun reform, gun reform, gun reform. Wendell, if you were to look in the eyes of the opponents of gun reform right now, what would you say to them?
Hey, we have to do something, okay? And it's not just because what happened in Parkland, Florida. Okay, let me get that straight, okay? I think, to be honest with everybody, this is something that was going on for decades.
Absolutely.
Okay? You know what I mean? And then you and I were just talking about the fact that we were talking about black on black crime. Right. How all these black mothers would be seen on the front page papers and in the media crying for justice, crying to get the drugs and the guns out of our communities. Well, even back then, we were out there and we were trying to make a difference the best way we could, okay? But nevertheless, here we are decades later, okay? And the problem still persists, okay? Because what you're seeing now is assault weapons being used in public education facilities, and we can't stand by idly, just like we said back then, and not try something new, do something different, okay? And what we have is a stronghold in Washington. The NRA has a stronghold on many of our politicians, okay? That's the number one problem, because if you follow the money, okay, and look who are the beneficiaries from the NRA, you'll understand where we're coming from. Even here, even right now, we know for a fact the biggest beneficiary is our president. He's at a tone of 25 mil plus. Okay, that's a lot of money to go in somebody's campaign coffers. So don't, in other words, don't look for the president to do anything or change anything when it comes to common gun sense laws. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to say, all right, like Ronald Reagan stated decades ago, he understood we needed a ban on assault weapons. Assault weapons is the biggest part of the puzzle. And people, if you don't understand that, then we're just spinning our wheel, or like they say down south, you're just whistling Dixie, okay? There should be no reason why people can't understand that assault weapons, and like Ronald Reagan was quoted as saying, they do have a place in our society. They belong in the hands of our military, okay? I'm a strong believer in that. And that if we don't do anything to ban assault weapons, we're just spinning our wheels. You could talk bump stock. Right. You could talk background check. Right. All those things are essential, yes. But the biggest part of the puzzle is banning assault weapons. Because if you don't do that, then you're just waiting on the next incident.
What's new? What's different?
Well, I have to tail off of what Representative Gilliard said, going back to the assault weapons ban. And I'm pleased to see Representative Gilliard and several other representatives in the House to come forth with legislation this week to put a ban on that, because it's this idea that if we're infringing on the Second Amendment rights by trying to put bans on certain types of guns. And the question comes back to, again, common sense gun legislation. In the hands of the normal citizen, you, I, Representative Gilliard, and the like, what a good use does an assault rifle have in regular society? And I think the common ideology is that it has no place, which is why there's been a push to make sure that if we're going to have these, it's only in the hands of military personnel and law enforcement, because that's where it should be. For me, I think we've reached a tipping point nationally when it comes to school safety and these instances of mass gun violence. And as the question you referenced earlier about, well, it's been going on for so long. And as Representative Gilliard said, this is not something new. What we saw, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago in Parkland, Florida, is not something that's just coming out. It's been something that's been taking place for years, and it's finally reached a tipping point to where we've got to do something. And so I'm glad to see that we've got leaders in South Carolina that are determined to do something about it. But again, it falls on deaf ears, unfortunately, and it does us no good if we're going to continue to operate in the same mindset that we have been. I truly believe here in the United States, especially in South Carolina, we need a moral revival. Mm-hmm. We really need a revival of our morals, our deepest values, to try to figure out exactly what is it that we truly care about, and what is impeding us from really advancing a good public agenda that's something that benefits the people. As Representative Gilliard says, goes back to we the people. And if we're not looking out for the best interests of people, then what are we doing? And I think we need that kind of moral revival, and I'm hoping that the common sense pieces of gun legislation that have been put forth gets the kinds of traction that it deserves. I was so inspired this past week with the children and the students from Parkland, Florida, the school, and just how they've been able to organize and show nationally their frustration. And the good thing about that is those are mostly juniors and seniors in high school, and by 2020, the next presidential election, they'll be part of the electorate. Yes. And so these are people who will be able to vote, and their vote is going to matter, and their voices matter now. And so I hope that that momentum is something that carries throughout South Carolina, and that we're able to, to get on that wave, if you will, and understand that we need some gun reform. Yep. If Congress is not going to do something, if they're going to continue to be beholden to the NRA and other special interest groups that continue to want to preserve the status quo, then it's going to be incumbent upon state leaders and officials to do something about it. And so I'm pleased to be part of a body where we've got individuals who understand the need for school safety, who understand the need for common sense gun legislation, and are committed and determined and have a plan to put something in place to do something about it.
And obviously you talk about school safety. You want to introduce a bill in the State House to require mandatory active shooter drills in South Carolina public schools. Yes. And you think it's going to be a bipartisan bill? I do. This bill was born out of a study. If folks will take a little history lesson back in time. In 2014,
the General Assembly essentially created a task force on school safety. Again, back to Representative Gilliard's point, this isn't something that's new. And South Carolina at that point had been studying best practices and recommendations on how we can improve school safety. That committee was a bipartisan committee, and it included stakeholders from law enforcement, school officials, and the like, counselors, mental health counselors, and all of that to come up. What can we do to improve safety, school safety in South Carolina? There were 62 recommendations in that report, that final report that came out, and 2 of those recommendations are included in my bill. Essentially, they talked about active shooter, live shooter drills, in addition to increasing the frequency of those drills so that we can replace some of the fire drills that we've got, so that there's not too much lost instruction time where we've got this abundance of drills that we're constantly doing, but saying, hey, maybe we relax some of the other drills we're doing to increase this. It's not something that's intended to address the issues of school shootings. We know that it's going to take the aforementioned gun legislation, common sense gun reform to address those issues. However, it's important for us, again, the same logic, the same reasoning that goes into why we do any other drill. It's a precautionary measure. Right. It's that worst case scenario. If it does come to our front door, to our doorstep, are we prepared to handle it? And so I think we've got to have that question here in South Carolina. Are our schools prepared to handle it? And so what that bill does is it requires the SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and the State Department of Education to come up with a come together in a collaborative report and to come up with a training mechanism and dealing with exactly how this curriculum is going to go and how it's going to be implemented within the schools. Because currently, some schools do active shooter drills. There are a number of them that do it throughout South Carolina, and there are some districts that probably mandate it throughout their district, but there's no statewide mandate. And I think this is something that's certainly necessary. And I've been pleased once I got to filing that we've got some bipartisan support as far as some of the signatories on the bill, and I'm hoping that we can get a committee hearing on it soon, and it works its way out through the committee process and into ultimate signing into law.
And I call it the Preparedness Awareness Bill, because I thought it was a brilliant idea from this young man, and I really look forward to go through. Okay.
My question is this: is South Carolina prepared?
That's a good question. No, we're never. I always tell people, always try to think like this. You're never prepared, because if you think that you are, then you get too complacent. Okay? Always have your mind open for innovative ideas. Okay? Even when you look at his bill, I'm quite sure when the awareness preparedness thing go down, the students going to be engaged. They're going to say, well, we could do this better. We could have gotten out faster this way, that way, because of his bill. Okay? So you're never prepared. Because if you think you are, no, you're really not. Okay? Now, and let me reiterate, I want to say something, because I always tell people I love to do research. Okay? Let's go back to 1994. Right. You remember the Brady bill? Sure. That became law, and they outlawed certain weapons, sure. Assault weapons. Okay, that law had what we call a sunset law. Okay, 10 years after, it was dismantled. Did you know after it started in 1994? Okay, it went away in 2004. Okay, did you know that after that, the mass killing increased by 200%? We just had a meeting with U.S. Senator Tim Scott recently, and I told him about that. Okay, and for the love of God, if you know that you have a U.S. Senator in the room with other state legislators, okay, County Councilman Teddy Pryor was there. We had North Charleston City Council, Michael Brown was there, and we were trying to engage in ideas to show people that we want to move this thing along, okay? Because even the senator and everybody in that room understood that these killings are nothing new, okay? We've had assault weapons in black communities, white communities for years, okay? And when you go in the past and see the things that we started to create, things like CPAD, You know about that. Well, all the community leaders got together.
Sure.
We started patrolling out communities with law enforcement. That was the brainstorm of Teddy Pryor, Charleston County Councilman Darby, and Seth Whooper. Okay, they created that program. We went from the east side in the city, North Charleston, we were all over. Then you had other groups picking up on the idea because the concept was magnificent. Okay? Sometimes we got to get back to the basics. We might have to start doing that again. And I challenge all the young people, no matter what age, really, but they need to get committed and get involved in local government, work along with the local law enforcement to make a change in their communities. Crime has no respect to one's color or culture, okay? We have to understand that we're all in this together. Okay, so if we're out there fighting crime, it's not a black thing with me. It's a human thing, and many of the young women and men that I work with. You see, once people can understand that, then and only then you're going to see a change in your communities. Okay, but having that sunset clause that went away in 2004, and knowing that the mass murder went up 200% after that, that should tell you something right there. Okay. You see, we got to do away with these assault weapons, because if we don't do that, and that's why I'm so passionate, I should say we're so passionate about it. If we don't do away with, that's a big part of the puzzle that needs to be addressed. I mean, we can sugarcoat this thing like the president. I heard the president almost, he commented on your bill in a way. You know, nothing you want to hear, you know, but at least somebody put that to him. You know, because my mind just went on him and what he was doing in South Carolina with his bill. Sure. But nevertheless, unless we put all these puzzles in one place, you know, we'll never get anything done. And that's always been our position when it comes to solving these problems. Okay.
Let me move from gun reform to utilities. This is from the Post and Courier, and this the headline reads, South Carolina electric co-ops plan to sue Santee Cooper. When you hear that, what sticks out in your mind?
Money grabbers. I mean, it's just the bottom line. The ratepayers are getting ripped off. I mean, it's just no way in hell you can have a meeting with the CEOs with any of these co-ops or electric power companies, and we found out that they were going in meetings giving each other what we call performance bonuses at the tone of $1 million. Man, that was mind-boggling. While the average citizens out there struggling to say they have to make a decision whether they're going to buy medicine or keep their electricity on. Something not right about that picture, okay? But what we have done at the state level, when we're taking measures now to assure the ratepayers that this won't ever happen again. And I have to caution people now. Yes, Dominion has put in a bid to buy SCANA and its problems. And they're daggling that $1,000 out there for our ratepayers. I know it looks good, but you got to understand what's going to come behind that. Because what they told us in the meeting, they want to keep the Base Load Review Act intact. The Base Load Review Act is the thing that got our ratepayers in trouble from the start. Okay? And whether it was the regulatory agency that we depended on, was supposed to have been our check and balance system at the government level, you know, we have to make changes on those agencies, and we've asked everybody to step aside. Okay, so we're taking action. I really have to send really my kudos to the Speaker of the House, J.D. Lucas. You know, he's really taken the lead on this, and I'm sort of taken back the fact that he's passionate about it, okay? And he's not looking at this thing just one way. He's keeping his mind open about this, the approach to this whole problem. But we're going to make progress in that area, trust me. And that's taken up the whole agenda, really, so far, half of the session, and you're going to see some progress, because this won't ever happen again.
And I know I was talking to one of the state representatives off camera, and she basically said, hey, these people are not going to get $1,000, maybe $250 at least.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Representative Gilliard said, because this issue, obviously, as soon as I got in, and, I had to really get myself up to speed. And I want to commend Representative Gilliard and all of those who, because he sits on the Utility Oversight Committee. That's
Representative Mack, that's right.
And Representative Mack as well,
Yes.
that's right. So he, and along with Mack and several others, sit on that committee that's pretty much brought SCANA and all of these utilities into the forefront, even the cooperatives into the forefront for testimony, and really have vetted them and scrutinized everything about what happened, because it all boils down back to this. In 2007, when they passed the Base Load Review Act, it was bad law.
That's right.
It was bad law,
It's bad.
and it allowed it to get to the point where we are now. And undoing that is certainly going to be a tall task, and I think that's why you got so much of the resistance, because there's a lot at stake, a lot of financial interest at stake, and the one thing I think we can all agree on is, for me and how I vote and what I'm looking at, ratepayers need to be protected and made whole as possible.
That's right.
And there needs to be reform in all of the, as he mentioned, checks and balances from the Public Service Utility Review Commission, the ORS, and the PSC. All of these entities that essentially played a role into the process for approving rate hikes. At some point in the way, there were some failures, and so we have passed some pieces of legislation that address some of those entities in the form of reforming them, and we still got some things to do, but it's an issue that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. I could certainly see us debating this well up until the end of session, and it would not surprise me, because I think the Senate introduced a bill that, once we adjourn for the summer, that we can be called back just for the specific purpose of finishing up everything dealing with the nuclear fiasco, because a fiasco is exactly what it is.
And my heart goes out to the 6,000-7,000 employees that was building those reactors, even to the people in that chemical. VC Summer plant. But it's just a total mess out there. I drove out there about a month ago, and it's almost like a stillness, a quietness. And I was just taken back to the fact that knowing what happened and how this came about, you have to say to yourself, what the heck were these people thinking about? I'm talking to these people on these energy companies, these CEOs. I mean, there was so much greed, so much ripping off going on with our ratepayers. I mean, it's just a story to behold. This can't ever happen again in the state of South Carolina. It just can't. It was just a total ripoff. I mean, that's how I summed it up. Okay, but the ratepayers should be made whole, like my colleague said, in every way, shape, or form.
And another fiasco that you all are trying to avert that is around this particular coastal region is offshore drilling. Everyone said no, from Republicans to Democrats. Where are you on this issue?
Well, I tell you what, I haven't taken a position on that as of yet, because we have so many other things that we're dealing with. With gun violence, the ratepayer situation, with Dominion and Scan and all the other companies. I haven't even had time to even think about it yet, to be honest with you.
And you talk about gun violence, I want to go to that because I forgot to ask you this, but this is the headline from the state newspaper. It says this: Governor Master says he will sign a bill to arm teachers.
Well, he's crazy. He's pathetic for saying that.
It won't be a bill that I will be. That's not what we need.
No.
It goes back to what I said earlier. We got this mindset in this country, in South Carolina, where as the more armed we are, that's going to address gun violence. And arming teachers, I think the report came out yesterday that the school resource officer down in Parkland, Florida, essentially did not do anything, and he was armed. So you're talking about someone who's trained and was not able to actually do anything, and we're expecting teachers to do the same thing. One, we're not paying them as much as they should be paid anyway. We're not providing them adequate resources to support them in the classroom and support the students that they teach. And now we're asking him to be bodyguard too. So no. If a bill gets to him that is like that and doing what he wants, it won't be anything that I've supported. I'll tell you.
No, because as the add insult to injury, just to give you an update, they now know it's like 3-4 officers was out there that did not engage, that had guns. Okay, and I mean that's the human factor in all this. Okay, what we need right now, we need some stability in Washington. I mean, you have spineless people, no backbone, okay? I have to call it like it is. I mean, once again, I want to reiterate, the biggest beneficiary is the president at the tone at $25 or $30 million in his campaign coffers. It doesn't take Einstein to figure that out. So he's just going to play us, he's going to try to hoodwink and bamboozle us with all these mild things like, oh, I'm going to talk to the NRA and I'm going to be the sole Superman and I'm going to save the world. No, you're not, because that's what the administration is put there for. Use your speech writers, use your think tanks. You hadn't even hired half your administration. So Washington is not functioning properly, okay? And he's not functioning properly mentally. He doesn't have the mental capacity to be in Washington. I always tell people, I tell you what people ought to just look at this whole situation as. It's the reality show going to Washington, okay? Now, he's good for those shows. He should have never been elected or put in D.C. to run the most powerful country in the world, okay? I mean, President Obama, he set the bar high. He saved this country from depression, okay? I'm not gonna say a recession. I knew the true deal. Anytime you see people, the middle class that was saved, the auto industry that was saved, the millionaires and billionaires didn't have to pitch homeless tents in front of their mansions anymore because President Obama turned all that around. You should give credit where credit is due. Quit looking at the color of the skin. You ought to praise and thank God that we had President Obama to put this country back and give it wings again. And ante up on the truth. We have a clown in the White House. He's a danger to the society. He doesn't know anything about diplomacy, okay? And we have to understand he has a lot of inexperienced people in office now. We're paying the price for it, okay? If you don't tell people the truth, then what are we in these positions for? Okay, I didn't come to just to be the guy to say, oh, he's going to say all the right things. No, we listen to the people. We ascertain what they want from us as government officials. And we have to approach this thing from a positive but truthful aspect. Because if we don't do that, then we're just whistling Dixie. We'll never get anything done. The president's not going to do anything to ban assault weapons. He's not going to do it. Okay, that's going to come from the voices of the people when you hit these voting polls and put people in office, okay, who's going to adhere to the needs of we, the people, okay? And I can't be no more truthful than that. We can't be no more truthful than that. When we're here talking about his bill or the bill that I introduced, the joint resolution to put scanners in public schools, those are things that we can do tomorrow if we want. See, these things show up a small measure of safety. Like he said earlier, it's not a softball, but if it's working in other states, then we need to do it in the state of South Carolina.
Why not now?
Every time, thank you, because it's government process, that wheel, that slow wheel, okay? We have to go through the process to make it happen, and that's what we're doing. I always tell everybody about the scanners. Look, when you go through the airport, you go through scanners. You go to a mall, you go through scanners. When I came in this building, I went through scanners. To get to see him and me at the State House, you go through scanners. Sure. Scanners are now being made what we would call community friendly. You can walk through scanners sometimes and don't even know you've been scanned. But we need it. Now, we can show up safety for airports, ball games, elected officials. Why can't we do it for our public students and teachers? You see what I'm saying? I heard people say, well, Gilliard, it's going to make the school look like prison. No, it won't. Because you won't even know it's there. I prefer scanners over dolls.
Okay.
Or somebody carrying an R-15 on them, a high-powered rifle strapped to their back. Our officers, we don't need that.
And just to echo Representative's point, I think that when he says about it'll make the schools look like jail, because I signed on to this bill and I agree with him wholeheartedly. We've got to understand, we're in 2018, and you know, as many of the challenges we face in this nation and this state, we still have advanced technologically. And you know, they've gotten to the point where you don't necessarily have to know you're going through a scanner. I don't think it's going to create that kind of atmosphere. And then we have to look at it, at what point do we say our students' safety, our children's safety are worth it? Yes, there's going to be some kind of fiscal impact. Yes, it's going to cost money. But again, money over lives. We've got to protect our precious assets because these are the people who are going to create the future. These are our future leaders. These are our future business folks. These are our future doctors, lawyers. These are the people who are going to change the world, and so we've got to protect them and provide a safe environment for them to learn and grow in. And if we're not doing that, then what are we doing?
That's right.
You know, why are we up here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to answer that question, and that's why I agree with him in supporting him on this, and I'm glad that the House was able to pass unanimously the study committee in order to look into whether we can have the fiscal impact about the scanners within schools in South Carolina, because there are some places where that's commonplace. I've had conversations before. Oh, we had that for years, man.
And even when I had the meeting in my office with the state superintendent, Ms. Molly Spear, I didn't know she was already using scanner in Greer, South Carolina. I didn't know that. She told me it was the one. Right. You know, because a lot of people don't know there's different types of scanners. Right. And that's what me and my colleague here, we're going to have a forum. Okay. We're going to have companies come down so people can get their question answered. Same thing we did with the body cameras. Right. Okay. We're going to use that type of process and format. Okay. Because the questions came up with the body camera. Oh, where the money coming from? Oh, it's going to be too expensive. But like he said, hey, you can't put a price on a life. You know what I mean? We got to protect our teachers. The teachers are put in our school to teach. The students are put there to learn. Okay? They don't need to have a strap-on, concealed weapon, nothing of the sort. Okay? That's just the bottom line.
Which is why we've got to explore alternative revenue sources here in this state. That's just the reality.